Okay, so we're going to go through 5.5, splitting the square J2 now. Is number one is a warm up. Go ahead and pause the video and make sure that you get a nice little recap of yesterday's lesson so that we can add on. Now we're going to go over number one. Hopefully you had enough time to go through it. So the first thing that you're going to do is add in your blank. So we have x squared plus 10x plus 1 equals, if we add 13, we end up getting 11 plus blank. Now b divided by 2 would be 10 divided by 2, which is 5, and 5 squared is 25. If you add 11 and 25, when we take the square root of both sides, the x plus 5 equals minus 6, which means x equal, if we do x, it would equal 1. And if you do x 5 equals negative 6, x would equal negative 1. Okay, so your two answers are 1 and negative 1. Okay. So let's talk about when we're trying to complete the square, but our a value is not 1. So that means that there is an a value out in front, where you have to do a little bit different of a process. But we start out the exact same way, actually. So we have 8 plus blank. We're going to add 91, 96 over here, plus blank. Okay. At this point, if this is not 1, you need to factor out that number. So we need to factor out a 4, and you're left with x plus 2x plus blank equals 96. Okay. Now we're going to do the same thing, ignoring the 4 for a minute. So 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 1 squared is 1. Now this time, instead of putting 1 in the blank, we have two different numbers. Okay. Got it. If we put 4, it's not really a 1 in there, it's 4. We need to put 4 over here. Okay. So every time, once you put the number in the blank, you have to multiply it by your a value. Okay. And that a value doesn't drop. Okay. So now we have to divide by 4 before we square root. So we're left with x1 squared, 25. Take the square root. X plus 1 equals minus 5. If you solve both of those equations, you would get a positive 4 and a negative 6. Okay, so looking at the next one, if you notice it's totally not set up correctly, so we need to rewrite it. X squared minus 8x blank, and then negative 20 blank. So we moved 8x over and again, it just so happens that it is a 4 that we have to take out because it's the a value. We're left with x squared minus 2x plus blank equals negative blank. And then we are going to do b divided by 2 squared. So negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1. And if you square that, you get a positive 1. Just like in the last one, we're going to then multiply it by our a value, which is 4. Don't forget to drop that 4 down. Now we have negative 16. Now we're going to divide by 4. And then we square root. And now we have a square root of a negative. Whenever we have a square root of a negative, we pop an I out. And we have plus or minus. And then the square root of 4 is 2. So we have plus or minus 2i. The only thing we have to do at this point is rewrite it by adding the 1 over. X equals 1 plus or minus 2i. On number 3, set it up first by putting in the blanks. So we have 7x squared minus 14x plus blank equals 25. We need to factor out 7 first. So when we do, we have x squared minus 2x plus blank equals 25 plus blank. So drop down the 7, and then we have x. And we figure the next part out by doing negative divided by 2, which is square that number, and we put it in the first blank. So this time it's 1 times 7, which is 7. And then 25 plus 7 is 22. Sorry, 30. At this point, we're going to divide by 7. We're left with x minus 1 squared, 32 over 7. We take the square root. X minus 1 would equal plus or minus the square root of 32 over 7. We would then add 1, and we get 1 plus or minus the square root of 32 over 7. Now, this is an okay answer. The most correct would get the 7 out of the denominator by multiplying by that radical, because remember, you cannot have radicals in the denominator. That's not the most crucial part of this lesson. So I'm going to just write off to the side that technically it's 1 plus or minus the square root of 224 over 7. And then 224 can be reduced if you wanted to. So 224, if you start breaking it down, if you divide by 4, 4 times 56, 4 is 2 times 2, 36, or 56 is 8 and 7, 8 is 4 and 2, 4 is 2 and 2. So technically, you would rewrite that 1 plus or minus 4 root 7 over 7. Oh. Okay, I'm not overly concerned about that aspect. Oh, sorry, I forgot the 2, so that should be a 14. Okay, I am most concerned with using this far. All right, last one for the day. So we have 9n squared plus 18n plus blank equals negative 75 plus blank. First thing to do is factor out the 9. So we're left with 2n plus blank equals negative 75 plus blank. Now, going through all of these examples, we do end up with 2 a lot here, and that does happen a lot, but it's not always 2. So you're not always going to do it the same way. So we have n plus 1, if we do 2 divided by 2 squared, is 1, right, which makes 9 go here. Okay, so again, it doesn't necessarily mean that that blank is always, this one up here isn't always going to match this. Okay, that's not always the case. You just do the blank times your a value. Okay, so we have n minus 1 squared equals 66. But again, remember that 9 needs to drop down. So now we have 66 divided by 9. So n plus 1 squared equals 22 over 3 if you reduce it. The square root, n plus 1 equals plus or minus the square root of 22 over 3. And then we would subtract 1. So n equals negative 1 plus or minus the square root of 22 over 3. And again, this is fine, but if you reduce that, you would end up getting the square root of negative 1 plus or minus the square root of 66 over 3. And 66 can't be broken down, so you would leave it.